Hey everybody, we're in our series on pandemic planning, and in the last session we went over business impact analysis. Well, in this video, we're going to continue reviewing the FFIEC Interagency Statement on Pandemic Planning and look more into the risk assessment and risk management areas. Let's look at risk assessment and risk management. An institution's risk assessment process is critical. I've said that word a lot during this series, but it's critical and has a significant bearing on whether the business continuity plan or pandemic plan is going to be successful at all. Understand this, a risk assessment is something that is done before problems take place to do what you can to plan for where the risk could be, and also something that is done during an event to stay on top of what is happening and to further identify any areas of weakness that might pop up. There are a lot of considerations to include with risk assessments and with risk management that are very important when it comes to pandemic planning. We should be considering things like prioritizing the severity of potential disruptions resulting from a pandemic based on the institution's estimate of impact and probability of the occurrence on the impact of operations. This means looking at all the stuff you do and determining by importance what you would have to have done and what might be able to wait. But what if the pandemic is a long event? Then you will still have to have and prepare to do those low impact, low important items at some point in time. Something else to consider. What about a gap analysis? See, performing a gap analysis, that compares our existing business processes and procedures with what is needed to mitigate the severity of potential business disruptions resulting from a pandemic. Also, develop a written pandemic plan to follow during a possible pandemic event. If it's not written down, it's not going to get done. Checklists and written plans are critical because they help to ensure that everything is completed, and not just completed, but sometimes completed in an order or a priority order that is required and needed. And once you have a written plan, well, there's something important you need to have done. Reviewing and approving the pandemic plan by the board or committee, or maybe even senior management, at least on an annual basis. We want to keep the board and senior management aware of our plan, what's in place, how it works, and then keep it updated, tested, and reviewed regularly. If you get new systems, new people, they may not know how to work with the plan, so keep it updated. Next, it's going to be time for communicating and disseminating the plan and the current status for pandemic phases to the employees. Sounds complicated, right? Well, we want to keep people aware and involved in what is happening. Make sure they know who and where to go to with issues and how they are to follow up or even be part of the plan. Everybody's got to know how to play their part, and everybody's got to play their part. Next, let's look at some specific risk assessment and risk management actions that arise from a pandemic, which would include coordination with outside parties. You need open communication and coordination with outside groups, and this is going to include critical service providers. It's an important aspect of your pandemic planning, regular planning too, be able to get with your service providers. You should have a list of all these parties and keep that list updated with appropriate contact information. Support and maintenance for vital services during a pandemic, if needed, are very critical. See, I'm using that word again. Efforts should include consideration of cooperative arrangements with other financial institutions within your organization or institution's geographical area. Management should coordinate pandemic planning with local public health and emergency management teams also. Make sure that you identify the local authorities that can take actions. Things like who has the ability to close a building or shut down roads or alter transportation. Have a plan to alert local or state agencies regarding significant issues that may be caused by the pandemic outbreak. Communications with customers and the media, well, that's also going to be critical to ensure that accurate information is disseminated about business operations. Right now, social media is one of the main areas of the communication that is coming down. Make sure that you have a plan, though, for how that information gets out there and for how that information is going to be shared. It's important to use social media correctly. Critical interdependency challenges require management to ensure an adequate reserve of essential supplies and to proactively manage maintenance of equipment to ensure sustainability during service disruptions. Just like the general public, businesses, service providers, and financial institutions must have the proper supplies on hand, so do financial institutions. So management, you must monitor your service providers as well, identify potential weaknesses in the service, in supply chains, and develop potential alternatives for attaining critical services and supplies as needed. We're all learning from this pandemic how good our plans are, how supply chains are working through the event, and what we need to do to keep moving forward. But all this must be taken into consideration for our ongoing risk assessment. And when we get through this, we'll also need to take a look at what we learned from this event and how we can improve upon our plans. And we will get through this, and we will have learned a lot.